Okay, so look, Conor O'Neill is my name. You're all very welcome to today's session. What we're going to have a look at today is basically the kind of background, or how kind of Moodle hangs together with enrolments, student enrollments, staff enrollments, different things like the difference between normal Moodle modules, information areas. We're going to take a look at how you might take content in and out of Moodle as well, right? Just to let you know, this session is being recorded, so if you're watching the recording, you're very welcome as well. The recording will be located in the CTEL Training Hub. So in Moodle, you should see this area here, CTEL Training Hub. If you don't have access, you can just email us at moodle@wit.ie. But for this session, I will put everybody that's in this session, I will enroll them into that area as well. So the recording will be in that particular area, and there's lots of other stuff in there as well. It's mainly around how about adding resources and activities and all that type of stuff in Moodle, which we won't be looking at today. This is not about, you know, delivering content to students or anything like that. This is a little bit more how the whole kind of system kind of hangs together. Maybe how you, as from an administration or a support point of view, can use Moodle to in your own department. Okay, so just most of the training that we're doing, we're trying to align it with this framework for the digital competency of educators. And today, we're over here on the left-hand side for professional engagement, I suppose, under digital CPD. So it's just so that we can align the training with a certain type of framework. So what we're going to cover in today's session, let's have a look here just for a second. So we're going to have a look at student and staff modules in Moodle. We're going to have a look as well as at the banner integration and how timetable is involved in staff allocations for our staff enrollments into Moodles in modules. Past exam papers, different type of module administration, enrollments, groups, and we might do a little bit of Q&A at the end. We'll stop the recording for that part. So if there's any kind of ideas that we don't cover here in this session, and you had an idea, or you were just inquiring about something, or you had a question about something, that'll be the time to do it. So look, we're going to try and hit on most of those particular topics today, right? Just to let you know that the current version of Moodle that we're on at the moment is Moodle 3.9. Okay, it probably won't make any difference to you, but just look, that's the version we're on. We upgraded last summer, 3.9. Okay, so if I just talk a little bit about web browsers. So if you get kind of requests in from students about, I don't see such and such a thing on my Moodle screen, or it doesn't look quite right, chances are they're probably using Internet Explorer. So that's the one on the left-hand side. A lot of the queries we get, we just tell them, look, just switch browser. So we just tell them, look, use either Chrome or Firefox. The recommended one is Chrome. So that's the one we recommend, and that's the one Moodle actually recommend for the current version that we're on. So a simple switch of a browser solves an awful lot of problems. Okay, so availability. So Moodle, it's a web-based system. It's hosted in the cloud. So what happens is, really, when you're logging on to Moodle, you're logging on to a data center in Dublin. Basically, that's what's happening, right? And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But it's like most web-based systems. It's available 24/7. So you can access Moodle on multiple devices. So it doesn't matter whether you're on a laptop, a desktop, a mobile. If you have an internet connection, you should be able to get at Moodle. Now, Moodle has, as in Moodle, the organization has their own app. It's not the WIT app, it's the official Moodle app. So if you were on a kind of an iPad, or if you're on a mobile device, you could download the Moodle app. You still should be able to get at Moodle through the browser on your mobile, on your device. But they do a Moodle have a Moodle app as well. So you can download that from the Google Play or the Play Store or the App Store. Okay, so the log on, we get an awful lot of queries into our help desk about logging on to Moodle and all that type of stuff. So you will remember last summer, we switched over from the kind of the way we log into Moodle. So there was a big push on last summer for using Office 365 accounts. So we kind of went with that. We rolled with that as well. So now staff and students will use their Office, their WIT Office 365 account to log into Moodle. So again, we're recommending Google Chrome. Firefox will work fine as well. If you want to go directly to the WIT website, you can go to moodle.wit.ie. That'll bring you to the log on page. You can also get there through the WIT homepage as well. So you'll hit this button here, and what you'll do is you'll enter your, if it's a student, it's your student number at wit.ie. This causes sometimes a little bit of confusion because that looks like an email address. It sounds like an email address, but it's not used as an email address. So it will be a little bit the same as your staff name at wit.ie. Okay, now in that case, that is used as your email address, but for the students, it's not. The students have a completely different email address. It's a Google address, and it's their student number at mail.wit.ie. And the two systems are totally separate. Anyway, that's what you'll use. You'll use your staff name at wit.ie to get into Moodle. Sometimes when we have to create accounts for external examiners, they won't log in with the Office 365. What we will do in Moodle is we will create a manual account. So it's not a WIT account, it's just an account that lives inside in Moodle. And in that case, what they'll do is they'll log in with the other users. So they don't use the Office 365 login, they use that other users button there that you see on the screen. So there's links there for if you forget your password, and there's content there for our student support as well. So I just said there will be a little bit of a demo involved in some of these things, but there's some things that I just won't be able to demo because it's software related and it's kind of like an interface and it's all that type of stuff. But just to talk a little bit about this for a second. With Moodle, what we try and do is our website, the current instance of Moodle is responsive. So depending on your screen size, Moodle will respond to the size of the screen. So if you're on a laptop, a desktop, a mobile device, whatever you happen to be on, that it will respond to that screen size. Moodle navigation and the dashboard, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but I noticed that when I sent out the message this morning about the sandbox, that people had a little bit of an issue finding the sandbox. So what you'll find is on your dashboard, what I'm going to do is, if I just stop this here for a second, and if I go to my home page, so this is the dashboard, and down the left hand side you should see a list of the modules that you are enrolled in. Okay, up in the top left hand side there's a kind of what we call a hamburger menu. If you click on that, it drops the navigation bar. So this is kind of handy if you're on a small screen size and you just need more space. You can do that, right? But on your module overview, basically is down here, and it's just underneath the recently accessed modules. So your recently accessed modules are modules that you go in and out of quite often. So you're in and out of these ones the most, right? But there's a module overview, and what you can do here is you can switch from all modules, or you can say in progress. So your in progress modules are basically modules that are running in semester 2 right now. So if we were in semester one, we'll just say, your in progress modules would be your semester one modules. Your past modules are obviously modules you studied previously in the previous academic years. And your future modules are modules that you're doing in semester two. But seeing as we're in semester two now, right, your in progress modules are your semester two modules. But you will find your sandbox in the future tab. So if you switch to the future, it should be there. If you just want to be sure to find it, what you can do is you can just click all modules, and that should display all your modules. Now you can display this page a couple of different ways. You could, over here on the right hand side, you could list. So I have this kind of list view here. If you just wanted a summary view, I like the summary view because sometimes what you can do is you can associate the graphic, the image graphic, straight away with the module. So I know that, for instance, this is the COVID one, and this is the CTEL training one here, right? And they're easily identifiable by the icon. So that's kind of handy sometimes for staff and students. You can have a card view, which kind of takes up an awful lot more space. You can sort them by last accessed, or you could sort them by course name. I prefer the list view and I prefer the course name, or sorry, not the list, the summary view. And that's the view that I go from. Okay, so just continuing on from here, right? So that's a little bit about the navigation and the dashboard. We'll talk about modules now in a second, typical modules and some sort of activities as well. So let's just switch to the Banner and the Moodle integration. So the very first thing I want to talk about is academic years. So in Moodle, what we keep in Moodle, or what we store in Moodle, we obviously have the current year. So this is modules for the current academic year. Plus what we keep as well is we keep 2 previous years as well. So you'll have, so we're in 2021, you'll have 2019, you'll have 1980, something like that in Moodle. If you want something before that, you need to just come and talk to us. But basically that's the module, that's the current breakdown as regards academic years. Now we just have a look at the staff just for a second. The staff will be enrolled in modules in kind of 2 sections. Semester 1. So at the start of semester 1, we will link up with the staff in timetabling, and we will link up with Brian O'Sullivan in the lads over in MIS. And we all work together, and what we do is we get a kind of an extract or data from the timetabling system. And we enroll the staff as per what's on the timetabling system at that time. Now, this is just a snapshot. So we leave this as close to the start of the semester as possible, so that we have the most accurate picture possible. Because when we do this staff upload, it's just a snapshot. It's a moment in time. I do it basically on, we'll say, the Friday or the Thursday before the semester starts. So if there's a change in the timetable after that, we won't know about it. Okay. So we also do the very same process in semester 2 as well. So at the start of semester 2, again, we will work with the lads over in timetable and on MIS. We'll come up with an extract, a data extract that has all the timetable and information. Now we do a little bit of work ourselves in Moodle as well. So we kind of have a look at the Moodle data as well. We take kind of an educated guess as regards modules that people taught previously and all that type of stuff. You'll see in a second when I get the kind of things like splits and cross lists. So anyway, look, that's what happens for the staff member. So it's done basically, the staff enrollment in the Moodle modules is done at the start of semester 1 and again at the start of semester 2. For the students, it's all automatic, and it's done as regards the integration between Banner and Moodle. So we have an automated kind of piece of software that sits in between Moodle and Banner. And it jumps from Moodle over to Banner, and it brings back registrations as they happen. So that's what it's just constantly doing that, you know, 4, 5, 6 times a day. I think it runs every 2 or 3 hours or something like that. And what it's doing is it's jumping over to Banner, and it's just bringing back enrollments. Now, I'll talk a little bit about this in a second, but we can't write back the way to Banner, obviously for obvious reasons and stuff like that, right? So the import is just into Moodle. We can't send data back to Banner. Now, that'll become important when we get to things like transfers and deferrals and all sorts of stuff. Okay, so for staff and for students, this is kind of what really happens. There's 2 types of modules in Moodle. There's CRNs, right? And then there's information areas. And CRNs are basically from Banner. Okay, so we get all our CRNs from Banner, except when it comes to splits and cross lists. Information areas, on the other hand, are basically like school information areas, departmental information areas, program information areas. And they only live in Moodle. They don't exist in Banner. Okay. So if we were to just have a look at splits just for a second. So this is a classic example of why we have to split a module. What will happen is there'll only be one instance of 16758, the CRN 16758. There'll only be one instance in Moodle. And you might have, like, I don't know, 180 students enrolled on this particular module. But you can see from looking at the programs that this module is delivered over several programs. And some of them are at honors level, so level 8, some are at level 7, and some are at level 6. So obviously the pace and the delivery and the content that's being delivered is going to be delivered at a slightly different pace. There's going to be different assignments, there's going to be different whatever might be the case, right? So what we end up getting is a request from the lecturers involved. So it could be 10, or it could be 4, or it could be 2 lecturers. I don't know how many is involved in this, right? There could be lots of people involved, and they'll request a split. And what we have to do then is we have to split that module, but we won't know who's taking which group and all that type of stuff. And this causes us problems. So if we ever got a kind of a, you know, that kind of, you get that kind of sigh moment, right? It's when somebody requests a split, because it just causes problems, right? So let's just have a look at what happens when we get a request for a split. Now, it's just to make a point as well. We don't just get a request to split a module because it's delivered across multiple programs. There's all sorts of reasons. There could be personal reasons between lecturers why they don't want to deliver a module together. There could be intellectual property issues why people don't want to deliver a module together. It could be, there's lots of different reasons basically why we get requests for splits, but it's mainly around, it could be a timetabling issue as well. It could be a few things. But it's just to make the point that it's not always clear cut why people request a split. So let's have a look at what actually happens when we get a request for a split. So we will have a module in Moodle, and it's going to be in Banner, and it's going to be on the approved course schedule, right? So it's proper module, ready to run, students enrolled, it's in Banner, everything is hunky-dory, and there's 2 lectures, we'll just say in this case, lecture A, lecture B, and they've been timetabled to deliver this module. But we'll just say in the previous example, one lecturer is teaching to level 7 and the other one is teaching to level 8. So what they want to do is they want to split it because they're going to be doing different content, different pace, all that type of stuff. So what we'll do is we will create a split, and we'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 underscore A for argument's sake. And we will put lecture A on that. But that module, that split module, is not in Banner. There's no CRN in Banner called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 underscore A. So that just lives in Moodle. And I made the point there about it's not on the approved course schedule. Now the module, the original module, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is on the approved course schedule. It's just the split itself from a technical, from a systems point of view, that's not on the approved course schedule. So we'll create 2 splits in this case because there's 2 lectures involved, but we could have 3 or 4. We could have an A, B, C, D, E. It depends. And what happens then is basically we allocate these 2 lectures individually to each split. But this is where it gets a little bit hairy for us because we then, the enrollments have to be manual because I don't know, or CTEL won't know which groups, which lecture is taken. So what we do is we try and ask the lecturers, look, you do the manual enrollments. We'll help you if you tell us who you're teaching, or maybe you're teaching this program and the other person is teaching another program. We can help that way. So it just becomes a little bit tricky, you know what I mean, when we get to, and because manual enrollments as well are a snapshot in time. So if I do it now, just say we're in semester 1, and this happens as well because students are very late register. So we get a request early in semester 1 to do a split, and then we do the split, we'll say on a Friday, and the following Tuesday, some student comes along and registers. Well, we've missed that student. Now that student is still back in the original CRN, and they're not in one of the splits, but all the activity is going on, is being delivered in the split, and nothing is happening. And the student is complaining and saying, I don't see any notes, I don't see any stuff, any content, and all that type of stuff. So look, it just creates problems for us. Okay, just to make the point as well, is what we do sometimes is then well, most of the times, is that we actually close off or we hide this the original CRN then as well. So now the student should only be seeing the splits. Now that causes problems with late registrations, or if the lecturer missed an enrollment. So if they did everybody except Joe Bloggs then is emailing Moodle saying, I can't see my introductory to ICT. And then we look into it and we find out that what's kind of about to happen as well. So look, I'm sure you can appreciate the kind of problems that these splits cause us. But anyway, we try and get on with it the best we can. Cross lists. Okay, so sometimes we'll get a request for a cross list, and a cross list is kind of like the opposite of a split. What we will have is you will have 2 modules in Moodle. We'll say 65178 and 79086. And 1 lecture or maybe 2 lectures have been allocated to this. These are modules, they're in Banner, they're on the ACS, they're being delivered with students on them, but the lecturers involved, right? They're delivering the exact same content at the exact same time to the exact same cohort of students. But they have 2 modules. So instead of putting all the content or double jobbing and putting content in twice, what we do is we create a cross list. And what happens then is we kind of combine the 2 CRNs. Now again, this cross list doesn't exist on Banner, and it's not on the approved course schedule from a systems point of view for ISOs. And technically, it's not on the module is on the approved course schedule, but the cross list that we create in Moodle is not on the approved course schedule. Now, the good thing about cross lists, and why we're delighted to do a cross list, is because the enrollments are automatic. So what we can do is we can just create a link from the individual modules to the cross list. So we never ever miss a student. So no students are ever disadvantaged by not seeing the module because there's an automatic link between the individual CRNs and the cross list. Now, just to clean things up as well, as we also hide the original CRNs so that students won't be looking in the wrong place. So they won't be trying to submit uploads or submit assignments in the wrong modules or looking for notes in the wrong place, all that type of stuff. Okay, so that's splits and cross lists. So just to explain what happens behind the scenes So if you ever hear us talking about things, or lecturers talking about cross lists and splits, that's what they're talking about. Okay, so let's just talk about the students just for a second. And if I just have a look here at this is all about how students get enrolled on modules. So if we just have a look here at the WIT network, and what we have is we've got the WIT computer systems inside our network. So for instance, Banner. So Banner is inside the WIT network. Now it could be hosted externally. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll just say it's inside the WIT network. And you've got a user who could be inside the network, could be outside the network. It doesn't really matter. In most cases nowadays, anyway, they're all outside WIT network. But they could be, we'll just say sometimes I did that because they could be on campus some days. And what will happen is they will be registered into Banner. So you'll get a student who's going to be registered on a program in Banner. And chances are they're going to be put on a block. And a block, as you all know, contains a list of CRNs for a particular year in a particular program. And outside the WIT network, we've got Moodle. Moodle, if I mentioned it earlier, that when you log on to Moodle, you're logging on to a data center in Dublin. And basically what's happening is Innovation, who are our new hosting partners. So they host Moodle for us in a data center in Dublin. So when you log on to Moodle, what's happening is you're logging on to that data center in Dublin. But we've got a connection between the Moodle and obviously the WIT systems. So you'll see that the user is able to log into Moodle and log in and log out and that type of stuff, right? But there's this interface that runs between the WIT Banner systems or the WIT computer systems to Moodle. And what it does is, right, it updates every 2 hours. And this is kind of what I spoke about earlier on. This is the interface that we have running between Moodle and Banner. So it just kind of goes over to Banner and it will Banner sends back the information back to Moodle as regards students that have been enrolled on such and such a block in such and such a year. So put them on the corresponding module in Moodle. Now, as I said earlier on, this is one way. So Banner sends information to Moodle. So we'll just say, for argument's sake, a student is registered on a block and are put on those 12 modules for the year. And I'm going to pick on a kind of a humanities course because, or it could be in any particular school. But just say, for argument's sake, they register on one particular program and a week later they change their mind. And they have a change of mind and now they want to go on a different program and they do a transfer. Well, what happens because of that one-way interface? So just say they're on social care studies and then they switch to law. Well, in Moodle, they'll still have access to all their social care study modules because of that one-way interface. And when they get registered on the law program, now they'll have access to all the law program modules, as well as the social care modules. And that again causes problems for students because they're looking at modules and they're looking at the dashboard that I showed earlier on, and they just can't see the wood from the trees, right? So we won't know unless the student reports it, or a member of the admin office or whoever is doing the transfer. If they notify us, we will remove them from the old program. We can do all that, it's not a problem, but we won't know. So there's no way we'll know unless we're told. Okay, so it's just to highlight that particular point. Now, the staff enrollment on modules is completely different. Okay, again, we've got the WIT network and we've got the WIT computer systems. In this case, it's a timetabling system. And we've got the user down here who is enrolled or allocated, I suppose is a better word. They're allocated to teach a particular module at a particular time in a particular room. Now, we're not worried about the room We're not worried about the time. All we're worried about in Moodle is we're worried about what CRN is the lecture after being allocated to. So again, what we will do is, and I mentioned it earlier, we do this twice a year at the start of semester 1 and at the start of semester 2. What we will do is it's the same situation if for a staff member, they can log in and out of Moodle, but we have to do this upload manually. Now, when I say a manual upload, we do it in bulk. So all we do is I kind of prepare this big, huge spreadsheet and we just bulk upload that into Moodle. But like that, again, it's a snapshot. It's a one-way kind of upload or one-way interface. So if I do the upload into Moodle on a Friday and the following week, the head of department shifts around, just say somebody's out sick and they have to shift around the timetable, we won't know about it unless the lecturer kind of sends a request to Moodle and saying, listen, I'm covering such and such a person and I need to be allocated to a module. Now we have a whole request system around that as well. So we won't just give people access to a module, especially if there's course notes in there, because there's a kind of a certain amount of trust between CTEL and the academic staff member that we just won't share their content with anybody. So we've got to get explicit permission from the person who is enrolled in the module to give anybody else access to it. Now, if we look at the module and it's empty, we'll just do the enrollment. But if there's content in there, we send a request to the original lecturer looking for permission. So again, it can be a little bit complicated when it comes to the staff getting access to modules. So just think about it that way: 2 bulk uploads, one at the start of semester 1, one at the start of semester 2, and in between that, we just do it manually when a lecturer sends a request into the help desk. So we just have a look at the enrollments and the roles just for a second. So what we have, we've got editing roles, right? So they're mostly lecturing staff, along with administration or support staff into, we'll say, some information areas or whatever the case might be. So most of yourselves will have access to editing access to all these information areas. Then there's non-editing roles. So that's just mostly students. So that's just view access. Now for the editing role as well, as we've got a special role in there, an external examiner, and they have a kind of a limited view. So they can only see, they can't see course notes. They can only see gradable activities. So we'll just say things like assignments, Turnitin, Moodle quizzes, the grade book, all that type of stuff. They can only see all that gradable activity. They can't see course notes, PDFs, and Word documents. But they have to be enrolled. So when we enroll a lecturer, we enroll them as an editing lecturer. When we enroll admin staff in the information areas, we either enroll admin staff as editing lecturers or we enroll them as editors. It doesn't really matter. The main thing is that you just have edit access and you can change things and move things around and all that type of stuff. The external examiner, on the other hand, right, they get a slightly different role. They don't get editing lecture or editor access. They get external examiner role applied to their account in Moodle. So it just gives them certain permissions. So that's the difference between the editing roles and the non-editing roles. Non-editing roles are just student. And what we do is we create a student role for each academic year. So we'll have a student 2021. Next year, we're going to have a student 21, 22. And the reason we do that is because every year we shut down the previous roles for students. So students, only current students can submit to Moodle or upload and all that type of stuff. What we don't want is, we don't want students in previous modules uploading content and then coming back and saying, oh, I uploaded that assignment. And now we can track all this kind of stuff and there's dates associated associated with all this stuff. But it's just easier for us to just lock all this down so that it just doesn't cause the problem in the first place. Because if it causes the problem, we allow the problem, then we have to spend an hour looking at the problem. And we might have to do that, I don't know how many times a year. And that just eats into time, right? So it's just best to just shut it down altogether. That's why we create a new role for students each academic year. Groups and messaging. So obviously in Moodle, you can send messages and you can send emails, right? And you can either send it to individuals or you can set up groups, or you can go one step further and you can set up groupings. So groupings in Moodle would be a collection of groups. Or what you could do is you could put several individuals into one group. So there's a lot of flexibility around individuals, or sorry, groups and groupings. And you can send messages to groups. So you do that through the announcements. So most information areas will have announcements, or they'll have a news forum and different things like that. And you can send messages to individuals as well through the participants list. So, but obviously groups and groupings, these are things that you have to set up yourself. Now, when it comes to information areas, I do a lot of work insofar as I look at Banner and I will take an extract and I will bulk upload all the students into groups. But I mainly do that for school or departmental information areas, or on a request from certain people. But if I'm not asked to do it, I'm not going to do it, because I'm going to take it into it that basically the person they don't want them to use groups. Okay, but if you do want to use groups, come and talk to us and we can help you. Okay, so just have a little bit here about this WinZip and 7-zip and uploading archives, because some of the people do a little bit of work around past exam papers. I'm just making sure I'm not after putting everybody to sleep. Are you all still with me? Yeah, I am. All right, give me a thumbs up there. Right. So what I'm going to do is, right, I've sent everybody the zip file. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to show you this just for a second. This is, where did I put it? Let me just share my screen again, right? So I'll just show you basically how, what we do with exam papers. So I get a lot of requests at certain times of the year for how do I go about exam papers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share this screen for a second. I share the whole screen, right? So I had this, you can all see that, yeah? Okay, so this is what I had, right? This is the zip file that I was talking about. So all I'm going to do is, I'm just going to download that, right? You can see now down the left-hand corner, it's just downloaded into the downloads folder. And if I open up my Internet or File Explorer, you can see in downloads, there's the zip file. Okay. Now that's just down in my downloads folder. So if I was to go back into Moodle for a second, what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go into this module for a second. And the very first thing I'm going to look at is, I'm just going to show you that little thing about groups before I move on to this thing. You can see here on the left-hand side with participants. And there they are, right? There's Reggie and Gordon and all the gang out of U2, right? So you can see them all there, right? But you can see they're not in any groups. If I wanted to create groups, what I could do is, before I do that, right? If I just wanted to go into announcements, I could add a new topic here, but you see, I can't send it to a group. So what I'd have to do is, I have to go back and I'm going to go to participants. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to click on the actions icon up here, just above that button. And I'm going to go groups. And I'm going to create a new group. U2, yeah. I'm going to go down, I'm going to save that. And you can see it's 0. So what I'm going to do is, right, I'm going to add or remove the members of U2. So there's after that. Okay, there's the 4 of them. I'll add them in. And I'm going to go back to the groups. And you can see now I have 4 members in the groups. So if I go back to the module, and if I go to announcements again, I still can't see the groups, right? So what I've got to do is, I've got to come out here. I'm going to turn editing on for a second. I've got to come out here, and I'm going to go edit this particular announcements form. And right down the end, there's common module settings. And that's set to group mode. It's set no groups. I'm going to say separate groups, which means only the group. So basically other groups can't see other groups. That's what it really means, right? So I'm going to save and return. So now if I go and I turn editing off, it doesn't really matter if I have it on or off. But if I go to announcements, now I can say, oh, well, I want to send a message to a particular group. So just say I wanted to send it to U2. I add a new topic. This is my subject. This is kind of like putting a little bit of an email together, right? This is my message. And there's an advanced option here, right? And if I click on that advanced option, I've got an option here to send an email with this post. And if I post that to the forum, I can see that I sent it to that group on this date. And this is what I sent. If I clicked into it, I can edit and do whatever I want with that. Now, the students can't reply to these posts, right? Students can only reply to, you see this one here, this forum. I could add a forum if I wanted it. And some lecturers use a forum to allow students to collaborate and talk with each other and discuss topics and content and all that type of stuff. But announcements are basically that's what they're for. They're just making announcements like classes cancelled next week. We've moved from C31 to C35. Look at this video. It's very important before class next week. I don't know. It's just announcements type stuff, right? But anyway, look, you get the plan, or you get the image here, right? You can use it to send messages, but you have to set the groups up first. Okay. Yeah, we were talking about the archives. So let's just have a look here for a second. Just say I had this tile here, right? And just say this tile was called past exam papers. Okay. Now, remember that file I downloaded? So it's down here in my zip file, or it's on my folder here, right? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can open up your file explorer and you can take that and you can drag it over here, right? But what I want to do is I just want to explain the layout of this thing first, right? And this is a zip file. So I can't see inside this zip file first. But if I right click on that with the mouse, I have this thing called 7-zip, right? Emmett, will you do us a favor?
No problem, Connor. What is it?
Can you just throw into the chat that if you go to 7zip.com, download, /download, and just throw that into the chat, right?
No problem.
Thanks. And what will happen is that when you basically install 7zip on your computer, you will see this option for 7zip. And there's an option here to, we'll say extract to, right? You see where it's giving me the same name as the zip file. So I can hit that. And what it'll do is it'll put a folder down on my computer. And if I can click into that computer, I can see that inside the academic year, I have a program, or I have a number of programs. Then I might have, or in your particular case, you might have departments. And inside departments, you might have programs. Inside a program, I might have semester 1, semester 2. Inside semester 1, I might have module 1, 2, 3, whatever I might have. And inside the module, I might have the past exam paper. Now, I put them in there earlier. They're just dummies. They're only blank modules. They're just for demo purposes. So that's kind of the layout. Now, I've probably missed a step here insofar as I haven't got the department in there, but I'm not too worried about that. So what I'm going to do is, right, I'm going to take that zip file. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to drag it up to Moodle. And I'm going to drop it there. You see where it's asking me to drop it. And then I get this message that it says, because Moodle is cute enough now and it knows that I'm trying to upload a zip file. So it's asking me, do you want to unzip it and create a folder? And I say, yes, I do, right? So now it creates a folder for me. So if I click into that, I can see that it has the same structure. And what I'll do is I'll open up this just to show you, right? So there's the structure. So here's program 1. If I click on program 1, and then I open up program 1, it's semester 1. If I open up semester 1, it's module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, X. Right? And you can get the picture, right? So I've duplicated what I had on my computer. I've duplicated up in Moodle. Now, if you're doing past exam papers, and just say for argument's sake, just say you're doing past exam papers and you want to build them, you want to update. The way I do it is I'd click into that folder and I would download the folder. Now, I'm just going to delete this for a second. So what I'm going to do is I'll download that folder. You can see it's downloaded the zip file for me. If I open up File Explorer and I go to Downloads, there it is there, right? Now, what I can do is, just to show you what the difference here, right? What I'm going to do is, I'm going to unpack that one. And it's giving me that folder there. And I'm going to rename that folder. And I'm just going to say arts, just for pig iron, right? And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put, what I want really is, I want the department in there, don't I? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. Department 1, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that program, I'm going to drop it in there. Because really what I want is, I want my programs inside my department. Department 1. So now if I click inside my department, I have my programs. If I click inside my programs, I have my semesters. If I click inside the semesters, I have modules. If I click inside there, I have that, right? So I could, I don't know, I could drag and drop. I could come in here to semester 2 and I could, you know, come up back up there for a second. I could copy those, right? I go into semester 2 and I could paste those in there. So I'm building now my past exam papers into a folder. So I'm putting them where they should be, right? So I just keep on doing that and I keep putting the whatever past exam papers for a particular module, for a particular semester in the correct area. So if I come all the way back out here again, I'm back to here, right? I've got this folder. If I click in there, right, I'm just going to rename this one as well, right? And what I'm going to do is now I'm finished everything. I'm going to zip this up, right? And I can go back to 7-zip and I can right click on that folder and I'm going to say add to that file there, .zip. And it creates this zip file. Okay. Now if I go back to Moodle, what I can do now is I can delete that because I don't want that anymore. That's out of date now, right? Because I've downloaded it from Moodle and I've updated it down on my computer. So I'm going to delete that. Or if you wanted to do this, right, just to be sure, you could hide it. And you can see it's grayed out. So what I do now is, right, I go back to my computer and I find where I zip the file. And what I do is I just drag and drop it again. And I drop it down in here. And I get the same message. Do you want to unzip a file or do you want to create a folder? And I say, yeah, that's what I want to do. And that's what I have now in Moodle. And that's what the student sees. And if I click in there, I can see there's my department, there's my programs, there's my semesters, there's my modules, and there's the past exam papers. So really what it is, right? Your master copy, where you really want to be working is down on your computer. Do all your updates down on your PC. And when you have everything the way you want it to look, you can just drag and drop that up into Moodle. But you obviously need to zip it first. So when you take it down, if I was to download this, it comes down in a zip file. Then you need to unpack it. Then you need to update it. Then you need to zip it again. You need to zip it again, right? And what will happen then is you basically upload it back up into Moodle again. Now look, I know that I might be breezing through a lot of the stuff here, but look, we're always here to help if it comes to that time of the year. And we totally get it, right? When you're doing something once or maybe twice a year, you just kind of lose how you done it the last time. You know what I mean? You just kind of lose you because it is a little. I'm not going to make excuses, right? It is a little bit complicated. So look, if you need help, we're here to help you. You just drop us a message when help. What I'm going to do is, right, since we're kind of at the end, right, of we're at the questions part. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause this recording and I'm kind of happy to take any questions that you might have.